it's this myth that when Spain was not called Spain, but was called Al Andalus or Andalusia, and was controlled by the Moors and the the Ottoman Empire, that they had a saying that when the creator created Iberia or Spain or España, that they asked the creator for five things. They wanted a beautiful weather and climate. They wanted a sea filled with amazing fish that could provide nourishment. They wanted beautiful women. They wanted to be able to plant and grow food. And lastly, they wanted a just government. And the legend and myth has it that the creator gave them 4 out of the 5 things. He gave them all of the fish in the sea. He gave them beautiful climates. He gave them beautiful women. He gave them land that would provide amazing vegetation. But he rejected giving them a just government because the legend goes that it would remind them too much of paradise. So in modern times, we really view the United States in particular as a melting pot, right? Now, seen as the land of opportunity. And ironically, 400 or 500 years ago, there were laws put in place stating that they didn't want certain people to even come to the United States. And I find it's very similar. So when I started looking at the Inquisition, the Reconquista, one of the things that one of the other books will always mention was that after the Reconquista, the conquistadors, which were people like Christopher Columbus, Hernan Cortez, they fought in the Reconquista. So of course my brain went off and was thinking, okay, what was the Reconquista? So the Reconquista was the reconquering of um Iberia or Spain from the Muslims and the Berbers and the Moors that ruled Spain for 5, 6, 700 years, right? From 711 all the way to 1492 when they finally were expelled from Granada. And so this book right here, The Jews of Spain, A History of the Sephardic Experience. So I decided to learn the Christian perspective, what the Christians say about this time period. I decided to learn what the Islamic people say about this time period. And also with this book, I'm learning what the people who practice Judaism say about this time period. The story goes loosely is that they were out of Israel and they were looking for a way to one day return to Israel. But before they could do that, the Sephardic people, which were a people that was from North Africa, and then they went into Spain, right? And their culture was deeply rooted in Spain, and so um after the Reconquista, Ferdinand and Isabella and the Pope made decrees stating that they did not want the people who practice Judaism to be able to get to the New World. But in this book, it makes an argument and talks about Christopher Columbus, his background, his mysterious origin, and states that that many scholars believe that the underlying reason why Christopher Columbus and many people that were in Spain and Portugal wanted to come to the New World was because they were facing religious persecution in Europe at the time. So the Inquisition was having a campaign where if you did not practice the same faith as them, they could use state sanctioned executions as well as many different tortures and different things, and were actually rapidly expelling people out of Spain. So this story talks about this time period. It talks about the it talks about the people in Spain uh, of the Jewish faith, and specifically the Sephardic Jewish experience, right? Because is different types of uh, people who practice Judaism. So this book talks about the Sephardic Jewish experience, and thus far it's been a great book. Um, some of the things that she talks about in the book is that the Jewish people lived in Spain for centuries. They viewed Spain as a second holy land and contributed greatly to its society. At this time, it had many map makers, lawyers, astronomers, scientists who were present in Spain during the Age of Discovery, contributing to the discovery of the New World. Many wanted to find the lost tribes in the New World to escape the Inquisition and persecution. So even then, it was an underlying belief that if they did find a new land or a new world, that many of the people would be part of this lost tribe. And this was documented by the people in this time. Now, this book is written by Jane S. Gilbert. It came out in 1992. It is a wonderful book. It has a lot of um great praises from different from different publications, the Washington Post, many Jewish organizations and colleges, and I find that it's just a great book, right? And so she says that Sepharad means Spain. The Sephardic Jews came from North Africa, Middle East, and settled into Spain. They were later expelled from Spain after the Reconquista in 1492. So she goes on to say that she talks about how the Visigoths invaded Spain in 409. So she goes way back. So the tribes that live further north, the Germanic tribes that live further north, they come down into Spain. And then you have people from North Africa, the Middle East, they are coming up, and what's going to end up happening is these two cultures are going to collide. So Spain is going to become a melting pot, one of the first true melting pots in the known world, where you have people from Asia, you have people from Africa, people from Europe, you have many diverse people living in one place over the centuries. And in one of the other videos I did, many people don't view Spain as many in recent times people view Spain as a conqueror, but Spain has been invaded many times by many different groups of people: the Romans, the Greeks, the Visigoths, the Moors. It's so many different people later on that helped to cultivate what Spain became. So a lot of times when people look at the New World, right, which is very interesting, right, because we have Central America, Latin America, North America, and the culture that existed in Spain, some of it, not all of it, because still indigenous cultures exist, came here, right? So if we don't understand what was going on in Spain at the time, if we don't ask questions like, well, why didn't they not want these people to come to the New World? Why was Christopher Columbus interested in finding a new holy land? Or why was there so many religious undertones going on at this time period, right? Why was the Inquisition doing the things that they were doing? Why was the Pope at the time passing certain decrees saying that certain people could be converted from their normal religion to this other religion, right? Why was the Azores and Cape Verde Islands turned into a launching pad to convert people and colonize them and bring them to the New World? Why was Spain and Portugal the two countries or two nations that was so heavily involved in this trade, right? And so it's very interesting, and it's a lot that this book attempts to answer. And one of the things that she talks about is that the Visigoths invaded Spain in 409. She talked about the Germanic tribes, which includes the Suevi, the Vandals, the Alani, and the Visi. She talks about Pope Gregory and his view on Jewish slavery. She talks about how the Christians did not want these people to hold power in society. She talks about many laws that were passed saying that that these people could not do certain things, reminiscent of the same black codes or laws that were passed in the United States and in other places where certain people couldn't go to school, certain people couldn't have access to certain things, couldn't hold positions in the government. And these things we think as a modern invention actually goes back centuries, right? And so that's why this book was so interesting to me, the direct parallels that could be made. She talks about King Ricard and the First Council of Toledo. She talks about Isidore of Seville, who reprimanded King Sisabe. And I know a lot of these names may not have much context to you, but if you do your own research, you will find a lot of videos on YouTube. You will find a lot of videos talking about this. And then she talks about the birth of Sepharad. She talks about the influx of culture in Cordoba. She talks about the Jews being intermediaries between the Christians and the Muslims. So the Christians and the Muslims were adversaries to one another, right? And the Jews, they were able to be a third party, right? A neutral party, right? Because because generally they all at one point in time had a respect and a shared history as the Abrahamic religions. But when two started to infight, one would be in the middle that could remain in the land. She talks about how these people were seafaring people and how these people would travel and trade, and they would travel by sea to keep the Sabbath. Um, she said that they were generally accepted in Christendom and Islam. She said that they grew powerful by speaking multiple languages and traveling between different countries and kingdoms of Europe. So, since they were somewhat of a nomadic people, the Sephardic people became powerful because they learned many different cultures, they learned many different languages. And so, even though that they did face discrimination, they were able to still hold power to some degree. And one of my favorite characters that she talks about is a guy named Abranel. And Abranel was right underneath King Ferdinand and Isabella. And this is how I'm going to end this story. So in 1492, once Christopher Columbus, he was corresponding with Abranel, who was in the court of the king and queen of Spain, when Albanel, who was of the Sephardic faith, he was given an option because they was going to force all of the people that practice Judaism to leave Spain, and they were going to do really bad things to some of these people in the process. And so Abranel was given a choice, and they were asked, because he was so high in the court, that they gave him the option like, hey, we know that you are of this faith too, but we would allow you to stay, but you have to watch while we slaughter your people. And basically in Spanish he tells them, is it not enough that his name is Abranel? And basically what that means is like, is it like they want him to denounce his faith? And so he decided to board the ship and go into exile.